All right. Well, thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's rendition of Safety Page.
Hold on. I just started the recording. I'm going to go live with the Facebook right now. So give one second.
Not me.
You know what I'm gonna do?
Turn on those other lights, okay, overhead. What? Turn on the overhead lights.
Yeah.
I want to look brighter. Is that too light?
Oh, it looks good here. It looks good.
Okay. Do I look okay? Is it bright enough? Okay, good.
All right, you guys are live streaming on Facebook.
Kevin, I believe we're live.
We are live. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for tonight's Safety Page event. My name is Kevin Coyne. I'm a Naperville City Councilman serving out my second term in Naperville, and I'm also a practicing attorney with the Chicago law firm Chu Hock and Texan, located at Wacker Drive down in the Loop. A little bit about Safety Page. Safety Page was founded last year in 2019 and offers DuPage County residents educational opportunities and community town hall discussions on concerns including crime, drug abuse, the COVID-19 pandemic, and other matters that relate to public safety. More can be learned about Safety Page at www.safetypage.org or at the Safety Page Facebook fan page, Safety Page. A little bit about tonight. We have an outstanding panel that will feature 4 DuPage County judges who will share with us how their courts have continued to hear cases amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. We have Judge Monique O'Toole, Judge Rick Felice, Judge Jim McCluskey, and Judge Celine Walsh, who are all experienced judges and who were appointed to the DuPage County Circuit Court bench. These judges sit in courtrooms representing different divisions in the courthouse, and therefore they will offer their own unique perspectives on how each have adapted to their court calls during this very challenging and historic time. Each of these judges will also be on the November 3rd election ballot, running in separate judicial races for circuit court judge, and they have each received very high recommendations from the 2,500 attorneys that constitute the DuPage County Bar Association, and also the 30,000 attorneys that constitute and comprise the Illinois State Bar Association. I'd like to tell everyone a little bit about tonight's panelists. We'll start with Judge Rick Felice, who's there on the panel in the upper left. Judge Felice has over 40 years of legal experience. While in private practice, he tried hundreds of both civil and criminal court cases. While in private practice, Judge Felice was also a very highly recognized family law attorney and was awarded the Ralph Gabrick Award for Professional Excellence. Rich also has substantial experience with family law matters and cases involving disabled people, guardianships, and adoptions. Judge Felice is a former president of the DuPage County Bar Association, former chairman of the DuPage County Judiciary Committee, and is a former president of the DuPage Bar Foundation. Today, Rick is a DuPage County judge and hears family law matters. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Rick Felice, Judge Rick Felice.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. We are also very honored tonight to have Judge Monique O'Toole. Prior to being unanimously appointed to the DuPage Circuit Court bench in 2019, Judge O'Toole worked for both the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office and the Illinois Attorney General's Office. Judge O'Toole has substantial legal experience prosecuting domestic violence cases and other criminal matters. She currently presides over misdemeanor cases and formerly heard traffic court cases. Judge O'Toole also has experience donating her time to numerous DuPage County not-for-profits and charities, including but not limited to the Hinsdale Humane Society, the DuPage Association of Women Lawyers, the Illinois Child Support and Enforcement Association, and the Fenwick Mothers Club. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Judge O'Toole. We
Thank
have
you.
with us also Judge Celine Walsh. Honorable Celine Walsh was also unanimously appointed to the Circuit Court bench here in DuPage by the Circuit Court in 2019. She currently serves as the presiding judge of the Specialty and Juvenile Courts Division and hears felony criminal cases in the Criminal Division. Following her appointment as an associate judge in 2014, she heard cases in traffic court, domestic violence court, and she served as the supervising judge of arbitration in the Law Division. She was also named the presiding judge of the Traffic and Misdemeanor Division. Thank you very much for joining us, Judge Walsh.
Thank you for having us, Kevin.
Definitely. And then our final panelist is Judge Jim McCluskey. Prior to being appointed to the bench in 2018, Judge McCluskey was the founding member of the DuPage County law firm, Montes McCluskey, now one of the largest law firms in DuPage County, and which grew under his leadership from a two-attorney firm to a firm that now employs over 50 attorney and staff. During his career, he also tried 60 jury trials to verdict. Judge McCluskey is a former president of the Illinois State Bar Association, a former president of the DuPage County Bar Association, and today is a member of the DuPage NAACP. He furthermore is an appointee to the Illinois Supreme Court Committee of Professional Responsibility. And in terms of his courtroom, Judge hears cases which involve landlord-tenant matters, including evictions, and he also provides over bond hearings in criminal court matters. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Judge McCluskey.
Thank you, Kevin.
Outstanding group of panelists. A few housekeeping items. We'll have a number of prepared questions, which we will throw out to all of the panelists. A few are kind of focused toward individual judges, but the bulk of them, I think most of the panelists could add their feedback on. In the event anyone has any questions, they can just go to Facebook Live, and there should be a button you can push to put in a question, and I'll do my best to ask those as we work through the prepared questions, and as we hear remarks, feel free to submit your questions over that chat button. And I guess we'll get right to it. So we have, I have a few opening fairly general questions that I will throw out to the panelists, and any of you are welcome to add your insight on these opening items. And the first question that we'll start off with is, what has the court administration done to ensure safety of people who have to go into the courthouse and or courtrooms during this unprecedented time during the COVID pandemic? So how are we making sure that safety protocols are being met? Maybe Judge Walsh?
Sure. I just didn't want to interrupt anyone else that was willing to go. Well, first of all, Kevin, thank you and Safe DuPage for hosting this event for us tonight so we can showcase what the DuPage County Court has done amidst the pandemic to ensure that everyone is still getting access to justice here in DuPage County. Since COVID has hit, the administration of the courts, led by Chief Jan Guerin, has implemented all kinds of different measures to ensure the safety and security of anyone that would be entering the building, all the employees that work in the building, and also, while at the same time, trying to ensure that our courts still continue to run. It's been evolving, as it has been with a lot of other organizations, and making these, taking on these different types of measures and protocols amidst COVID. But a number of measures have been taken since March when this whole pandemic came upon us. First of all, everyone is temperature checked when they come into the courthouse. There's all kinds of security measures that have been taken in terms of ensuring that there's social distance measures taken. We decreased the amount of folks coming into the courthouse, and especially with regard to judges and their caseload, number of the divisions, most of the divisions now are going to be participating in Zoom conferences, and wherein parties are appearing virtually. Additionally, everything from where seating is located, completely reconfiguring courtrooms to be able to accommodate jury trials, plexiglass, all the kinds of things oftentimes people are seeing, either whether they're in stores, out in the public, all those kinds of measures have been implemented. And obviously it covers everything from what you see in the courthouse to how the judges are handling their court calls. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Sure. We'll open it up if anyone would like to chime in.
I would echo the comments of Judge Walsh. I think we're being very cautious. All of the court personnel are wearing masks. And anytime we're outside of any private areas, such as our chambers, all the judges wear masks. We want to make sure that there is proper social distancing, and we're very careful when anyone enters our courtroom. Certainly, Judge Walsh's comments about Zoom, we're doing that, and we're doing that on a very successful basis. And anyone who does enter our courtroom, we make sure that there is a limited capacity in our courtroom and to maintain social distancing, and everybody wears a mask in the courtroom. I think that all the other procedures are, we have dispensers, cleaning dispensers for hand washing to make sure that there is antiseptic right in any area that you go into the courthouse.
I would just add to that, actually I'd add to it, Kevin, echo what both Judge Walsh and Judge McCluskey said. And I know in my courtroom, which is a domestic relations courtroom, we actually have a hand sanitizer stand in the courtroom as well as throughout the hallway. And we also have social distancing in the hallway. We have certain areas for seating that's marked off so that people don't get close to one another. We're very careful about being sure when people enter the courtroom that they have their masks on. Our court staff, the deputy in the courtroom, all have their masks on. And as indicated by Judge Walsh, the bench is plexiglass, which is around the bench as well as around where the clerks are sitting as well. We're very careful. We also limit the number of people coming and going so that we are sure that it's a safe and secure setting when people enter in the courtroom. So I think we're doing a great job to be sure that people come in with the confidence to know that we're very careful with how we administer our court calls.
And I just want to say as well, in my particular courtroom, and maybe some of the other judges' courtrooms as well, we have those circle distancing markers so that it indicates where the litigants and the attorneys need to stand as well. And that's a safe distance between each other. So we're doing the best that we can.
I think
Okay.
ultimately, I was just going to say
thank
that.
you for that. In a similar vein, how are we treating jury summons and jury trials? How are those being conducted during this very unusual time to make sure the jurors are being kept safe? And I'll throw that out to any of you that may like to address that question.
I mean, I'd be happy to answer it, and maybe Judge Walsh can too, because I know in the criminal division we've had 2 jury trials, I believe, one 6-person jury and one 12-person jury in the last few weeks. And there are 2 dedicated courtrooms for the jury trials that the administration has set up with the appropriate spacing between seats and so forth. And maybe Judge Walsh can comment a little bit more about how the jury commission is working and how they're summoning jurors with regard to that.
So how, because of the concerns of the public safety and that being the jurors, prospective jurors' safety, and the risk of spreading COVID and trying to balance a defendant's right to trial and going to trial, which is a huge function of what we do in the courthouse. Certain measures have been taken in terms of, first of all, as Judge O'Toole said, with regard to the courtrooms, it took some time and some reconstruction of two of the largest courtrooms to put together all the different measures between, like I said, the plexiglass, even for where the jurors are spaced, and making sure that the jury room deliberations are such that they can be properly spaced, and clearly mask wearing. But in addition to that, the big concern with the jury commission was bringing the public, those who are being summoned, into the courthouse. That was probably one of the biggest challenges. Although the jury commission can accommodate a lot of space in their space, it certainly wasn't COVID, up to the COVID protocols. So there are less jurors. There's a much more communication that's going on between the chief judge's office, the judges themselves when they are planning these juries, the chief judge's office, as well as a jury commission. Everyone's in communication as to how many jurors we're going to be needing on a given day. And there's only a certain amount of jurors, prospective jurors, that can be brought to a courtroom to be selected. So we've implemented different measures. We did have up in the felony courtrooms, Judge Bacalus adjudicated over a jury trial just last week on an aggravated battery, and ended up being a 6-person jury. So it was a little less complicated in terms of the amount of folks coming into the courtroom, but it sounded like it went really smoothly. And there was really positive feedback from those jurors about the accommodations that were given to them, and they felt safe from their comments. They felt safe during the entire process, from the beginning until the end after they deliberated and rendered their verdict. So I think it just goes to show that in DuPage County, we're trying very hard. The administration is working really hard to ensure that we are going to be moving forward, even with all these challenges.
I'd like to add that I think Judge Daniel Guerin, the chief judge, has done an excellent job in making sure that we're safe in this courthouse. We're following the correct COVID protocols. And with his guidance, I think all the judges are doing a great job with respect to social distancing and protecting and making the courthouse a safe environment to be in.
Good. Next question. I know we have at least 2 of the judges on the panel tonight have presided over the traffic court. Are the traffic courts open, and how have things changed there? That's one of the courtrooms that just about anybody could find themselves in for one reason or another. Is traffic court open, and how have procedures changed in that courtroom?
Yeah, I can certainly answer that question. I was in a traffic courtroom when the COVID pandemic began. And that was one of the only courtrooms that actually did have to shut down just because of the sheer volume and the lack of resources and any kind of COVID protections that they could implement right away. And so that shut down for, I think, just a short period of time. And then now it's just at, I believe there's some caps with regard to how many traffic courts are scheduled per day. But as far as that goes, it's running just as it normally would, just the certain caps on the calls. But it had to shut down for a period of time just because of the volume.
They have also implemented measures to kind of change up a little bit of the protocol in terms of the amount of folks coming in because they're the highest volume cases. They've added additional clerks, so our circuit clerk, Chris Katrubis, has also been very instrumental in all of the processes by which we're trying to address COVID and all the safety concerns, but still run these courtrooms. So there's been an additional clerk also, from my understanding, in the traffic courtrooms in order to more efficiently call in a certain amount of folks at a certain times to maintain that social distance before other cases are called, and they are remaining in waiting areas that are social distance safe, as well as everyone has to wear a mask.
All right, very good. We're going to switch gears a little bit. At the beginning, we talked about your backgrounds. You all have excellent credentials. I know you're working hard to tell folks out there about your campaigns and candidacies. I've been involved in a lot of campaigns and politics in DuPage County, and a lot of folks don't really follow the judicial races, and it's not uncommon for people to ask, if I'm not a lawyer, really, why do I care who the judges are if I'm not going to court regularly? Maybe if each, a few of you could comment to that. Why are judicial elections important, and why should voters pay attention to who the judicial candidates are?
Kevin, I'd like to comment on that. A state court probably has the most contact with the average citizen or person in DuPage County than another type of court, like a federal court, because you have traffic cases, you have eviction cases, you have probate cases, guardianship cases, domestic violence cases, family law cases, DUI court, drug court to rehabilitate some of these people, and also felony courts. Everything that you may have, unfortunately, sometimes in some people's lives, would have to have some experience with. And you need a judge who's fair, impartial, knowledgeable, has a good temperament, and really has experience. Experience is the key also. And that's why knowing who the judges are, knowing who you are going to vote for, is so important for the average person in DuPage County, or just anyone in DuPage County who would have to go into the court system.
Right. Anyone else?
I would also say that judges make the most important, I think it basically piggybacks on what Judge McCluskey just commented on, but judges make the most important decision that impacts people's lives every single day. And no judge should have any type of a political agenda or have any other reasons for their decisions other than following the law to the best of their ability with fairness and impartiality and compassion. I can't say enough of my esteemed colleagues on the bench who are participating in this judge panel with me. And I think it's really imperative that people know that themselves or a friend or family member are going to be in front of a judge sometime during a very difficult time in their life. And you just want to be sure that the judge that you appear before have those kinds of qualities. So that, because they're going to be making a decision that can affect anything from, like Judge McCluskey said, it could be child custody, a person's freedom in case of a criminal courtroom, where a person lives, whether or not a person has a guardianship over a loved one. So I think it's just very imperative that the public become very educated, and there's no excuse not to, as to who the judges are or the judicial candidates that are running for these positions.
Kevin, I'd like to add to this if I could, briefly. The panel judges here are extremely experienced. We all have had substantial work in our fields of practice. And now as judges, we bring that experience to the bench. I think people can feel confident with the judges that are on this panel, that you have people that really understand the process, that will give people a fair opportunity to be heard. We all really believe that access to justice is crucial for everyone. I think everyone can be confident to know that we have the highest degree of integrity. We care about our jobs. We care about the people that come before us on a daily basis. And we are even-handed, and everyone is treated the same in our courtrooms. And I think all of us have those concepts in mind every day we come to court to make sure that people are treated fairly.
Great, thank you. I would like to remind all the listeners that if you would like to have a question asked, just submit it over, and I'll try and watch the thread of comments as we go through what are now going to be a little bit more targeted questions. And I got a question for Judge Walsh that to answer, and then maybe after she answers, any of you could elaborate. That first question being, what exactly is a specialty court, and how have the specialty courtrooms been affected by the pandemic?
Thank you, Kevin. And I'm very proud to be being recently named the presiding judge of the Specialty and Juvenile Courts Division. The specialty courts, as well as the juvenile courts, actually share the same principles of restorative justice and rehabilitation. And these courts use evidence-based practices along with a team approach, which is non-adversarial, in order to guide participants who are nonviolent offenders on a path to sobriety and recovery. And that is the goal of these courts. These courts include the drug court, first offender drug court. So you're dealing with those who are addicted to drugs, mental health court, and they can have dual diagnosis too, those with mental health issues. We call it MICAP. The focus court, which is first offender court for those who are addicted to drugs, as well as the veterans court. So these are the courts that comprise the specialty courts. And during the course of the pandemic, as anyone could imagine, these particular offenders are at a very high-risk population because they are addicts and in need of treatment and services, as well as mental health services. And I am really proud that the team that is involved, which is run by two of our judges in DuPage County, and their team, I oversee these courts, but these other judges actually run these court calls and these specialty courts. And they, during the pandemic, they didn't miss a beat. Basically, they adjusted the way that the team handled everything from treatment, accountability, the courtroom. The participants participated via Zoom meetings, as well as obtaining counseling services. They even had virtual outpatient treatment type services. So there were all kinds of initiatives and innovation that was used by these judges in order to ensure that these courtrooms and these participants still obtain the treatment that was necessary. And they were even placed into residential treatment during, and they have been during this time. Lastly, I would just say that when a participant goes through the program, either through the mental health court or drug court, they have, after successfully completing it after 2 years of sobriety and recovery, there's a graduation. And I'm really proud in the last few weeks, we had both a drug court graduation and a MICAP graduation via Zoom with all of the staff, which includes the judge, the attorneys, the probation, the counselors, the DuPage County Health Department. Everyone was still involved in that. So like I said, I'm proud that those particular courtrooms during this pandemic, under the leadership of Judge Kavita Thanakar, as well as Judge Paul Marchese and Judge Jim Konetsky.
Very good. I'll direct this question to you, Judge Felice. How have the COVID-19 pandemic changed things in the domestic relations courtroom?
Well, I was actually in the domestic relations courtroom right when the pandemic started, and we, I think, took charge pretty quickly. We allowed emergency matters to be heard. I was a duty judge, among others, that would then be assigned certain parts of the week to address emergencies that came in, unfortunately, in many cases where children weren't being returned to parents, parents weren't letting them go to the other parent. There are a number of issues that we addressed during that period of time. Even some very serious financial issues had to be addressed. We then added to the list of things we were able to do to allow people to gain access to justice, including varying the rules to allow prove-ups to take place where people want to get their divorce done by affidavit. And then we also allowed it to be eventually through the virtual court that I've been running regularly now since later in March. What has happened is, so on Zoom, we conduct court every morning. They're every day. And we handle matters that include presentations, issues concerning pleadings, hearings on pleadings, as well as we even have some additional summary hearings on Zoom as well. It's worked out pretty well. People have certainly been able to access the system through that advent of Zoom. We also had Court Call, which is an audio type access to justice device where we can have people that can get on the phone aside from the use of the virtual courtroom through Zoom. I would also add to that we now have expanded this to now include allowing there to be in-court appearances during this period if the court finds exigent circumstances where there is a need for a hearing with the attorneys and the litigants in the courtroom. Typically, these are evidentiary matters that involve more sophisticated or complex type cases that need attention, sometimes even trials that are taking place now as well on that type of a basis. So we have really, I think, managed it very well. There are a lot of credit goes towards the innovation of the 18th Judicial Circuit, Chief Judge Guerin, who spearheaded this effort to increase access during this period, as well as the presiding judge of the Family Law Division, Judge McJoint, who was instrumental in assisting in a variety of administrative orders, as well as all of the judges in the Family Law Division, including myself, that gave input to make this a smooth process. One last point here, come this Monday, there'll be even additional innovations to make it that much easier for people to get into these Zooms through changes through the clerk of the circuit court, Chris Ketcherubis, who's also been very active in this process to allow this type of activity. And I would further add that for many years in the domestic relations floor, we had handwritten orders. That was just typical of that floor. Now we are really focused on electronic orders, and the judge has been doing those pretty regularly. And now that will also be done by lawyers on a regular basis starting on August 10th, Monday.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we'll go to Judge Jim McCluskey. How has the eviction courtroom changed since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and are evictions occurring right now?
Kevin, there are no evictions because of the executive order by the governor. That has been extended to August 22nd. So as of the executive order that was entered into the state entered into law on April 23rd, no cases could even be commenced after April 23rd, and certainly there is no evictions. There hasn't been an eviction in DuPage County in over 5.5 months at this point because of the executive order of the governor. That will expire on August 22nd. The governor, though, has made an offer to landlords when he receives the COVID money. It's unsure whether that has happened at this point, but the offer is $5,000 to 30,000 landlords to accept $5,000 grants in exchange for no evictions up to the end of the year, December 31st, 2020. So at this point in time, there is no evictions. And so they're keeping me busy. I'm hearing arbitration calls now. Yesterday I had 137, all by Zoom, and it seems to be working out quite well in the arbitration call. They're having arbitration hearings by Zoom. Those are set and those are ongoing. Seems like the attorneys and the parties have adapted quite well to that.
Very good. Okay, we were starting to get some audience questions coming in. The first one I'll direct to Judge O'Toole, though I think a number of you may be able to comment as well. Since COVID hit, have you seen a change in the types of criminal cases out at DuPage, and are the volume of criminal cases going up or down since the COVID pandemic hit?
Well, when the pandemic started, we were hearing cases on a rotating basis. So we were only handling like time-sensitive matters and also emergency motions for orders of protection. I would have to say, with regard to general misdemeanor, we seem to have leveled off in terms of the volume in my courtroom, which is a general misdemeanor courtroom. But I'm starting to see a little bit more of an uptick now since we've opened up a little bit more with regard to retail thefts and that type. But the main thing that has remained steady or has increased, the crimes that have increased have been the domestic violence cases as well as the order of protection cases. So that has been on the rise, and that has actually remained steady throughout the pandemic and is kind of been the most steady volume of cases that we've seen coming into the misdemeanor courtrooms.
Okay.
I mean, that, it makes sense because people are being quarantined and there's a lot of stress. People have lost their jobs and so forth. Now that with the stress of kids maybe not going back to school, that exacerbates everything. So it's not surprising.
Okay. Another question that just came over. So a number of you have indicated that Zoom is a big part of your courtroom now. What happens if somebody that's involved in a court matter doesn't have a computer, is not technologically, adept to navigate Zoom? What happens when folks just don't have the technological assets at their disposal? What happens in those scenarios?
Kevin, I would say in my courtroom, we do allow access through a device court call. And really what it amounts to is through that process, they're able to use a telephone or a cell phone, landline, doesn't matter. And then we can actually access that call. It can be with a group of people. It can be with, obviously, the litigants and attorneys. And that has been used frequently. So people that don't have access to internet or don't have a computer, that is another form of access to the courtroom.
And I'll just add to that, in my meetings with the executive committee that helps advise the chief judge, that was a real big consideration. Would Zoom be able to accommodate litigants who couldn't have access to a smartphone, a tablet, a computer? How would they be able to, if they're pro se litigant or if they're represented, but they don't have that type of a device? And it sounds like Zoom, as Judge Felice had just commented, actually can accommodate anyone, a party or otherwise, via phone, which is just a phone call. So with that in mind, that was one of the considerations that we took into account when a lot of the discussions came about when we were transferring or changing court calls to accommodate Zoom and virtual video conferences.
And I'd like to comment on that also. When eviction court opens up, that was a concern of mine. And certainly because when people come into the courtroom, we would have to have we'd have to have them in small groups. We'd have to stage them somewhere else. So that was a very big concern. I was also working with the DuPage County Bar Association to have volunteers assist the tenants. 95% of the people who appear before me in eviction court are self-represented. However, now that I've been in the arbitration and I've seen self-represented people come onto Zoom, if you have, and Judge Walsh is exactly correct, if you have a phone, and certainly an iPhone, you can go on Zoom. I was considering the other day, talking to the chief judge, whether we would consider Zoom in eviction court. I was a little reticent about that, but now that I've been in arbitration, I think it's possible to have evictions and to have people call in on Zoom. Certainly it'll be a challenge to try to work out agreements with the landlords, because I believe the volume will be quite large when the eviction court opens up. But I think it's possible to handle it through Zoom, and I think it's worth trying it, because you have to be concerned about the safety of people and the spread of the disease.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question I have here. So I learned recently DuPage just had its first felony jury trial for quite some time. Judge Walsh, could you speak to how that went?
I did comment a little bit in my last answer, so I won't belabor it. But there was a lot of thought process, and there was a committee that was put together with a few of the judges in order, and also with our facilities management, and first of all, reconstructing 2 courtrooms at this point, and we have a 3rd on the way that can accommodate jury trials. So a lot of thought went into it, a lot of reconstruction to make sure that the first and foremost focus is on the safety of the jurors, the parties, as well as any witnesses and the courtroom staff. And so, like I had indicated earlier, they reconstructed it so that there was plexiglass, everything from the witness box to where the judge sits, plexiglass was basically around everyone, including where the jurors are, and then also social distancing and the masking, like I mentioned. But we did have our first test. That was Judge Felice, who is the most senior judge, I believe, in the courthouse. And he handled the jury. The jury commented afterwards, and during the whole time made sure that the jurors were accommodated. And like I had mentioned earlier, even the deliberation rooms and all of that are all protocol, are all COVID protocol safe. And they had great things to say about the fact that they thought it was worthwhile experience, and that the court really accommodated any of their concerns, and they felt safe during the entire process, and justice was served and a verdict was rendered. So I'm confident that now with our first test case of a jury trial, I believe that there's one scheduled for in the next couple weeks. And then we all are putting them on our calendars. So we'll be up and running with jury trials, definitely in the criminal division. And then I know following that, I believe after the first of the year, if I'm correct, then we'll be starting also maybe in the jury trials, that is. We have trials going on, but jury trials in the civil division, in the law division.
Great. Our time here is flying by, so I'll remind the viewers to get your questions in if you have any more. And I just have a couple more that I'll ask the panel, and then we'll move toward wrapping up. Judge Felice, Judge McCluskey indicated that we're not doing evictions right now. If there is a married couple that has reached a point where they would like to get a divorce, can folks get a divorce right now during the pandemic and given the complications the court is dealing with?
Absolutely. I have handled and completed successfully many. I mean, at this point, the numbers are quite high of people that wanted a divorce, and we were able to accomplish their needs and their case, so they can go on with their lives. I think that's very important, and we have again created some innovative ways to get that done. Not only do I have done numerous times prove ups on Zoom. In other words, when the case is ready and there's a marital settlement agreement, and in many cases the parental allocation judgment, parenting time as well, we are able to proceed through that device, Zoom, or we've come up with another creative way, which is the parties can have an affidavit that complies with their administrative order that sets forth certain things needed in order for me to be able to make my findings at the conclusion of the proofs. And that's worked out well, and many people have gotten divorced through that procedure. So people want to get their case over with and are in agreement. We can get the job done for you, and we do that on a routine basis. For us, it's routine. For you, it's the most important that need that help on a daily basis.
All right.
Kevin?
Then,
Kevin?
go ahead.
I
Sure.
just want to mention on the flip side of that, DuPage County is open for love. I married 44 couples last week. So we're one of the counties that is accommodating people if they want to get married we're open on a daily basis for that.
Which is probably the only good reason why people go to a courthouse. That's what I always say. The only happy one anyway.
That's awesome. All right. Well, the COVID pandemic has obviously caused all kinds of turmoil, to our county and pretty much everywhere. A lot of economic turmoil has been seen since COVID hit. There's been a lot of consumer issues. Maybe Judge McCluskey, are you seeing an uptick in consumer debt cases like unpaid credit cards, people not being able to pay their car loan, those types of matters in your courtroom? Has there been any meaningful change since the pandemic hit?
Since I've been in the arbitration call, there has been an increase. I've talked to the previous judge who did an excellent job, Judge Chapman, and he's told me he saw a steady increase on that. However, the governor has in place an executive order that prevents collections on people for consumer debts, and what happens in that case, that's been continued. It is in place until August 22nd. that went into place in early April of 2020. So that consumer debt collection, there's been an increase in the cases for people who have been unable, unfortunately, to pay their credit card bills, their car loan bills, but the collection procedures have been on hold. So there's stay orders with respect to that. We're monitoring the cases, but the garnishments, non-wage garnishments, any type of collection procedures like citations to discover assets, things of that nature, has been put on hold until the expiration of the governor's order.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate all of you joining us tonight. I thought your answers were all very thorough. And obviously a lot of confusion has been triggered as a result of the COVID pandemic. And I think a video of this event will be available on our website and will be up on the fan page. And I think anybody who has a court matter and has questions, I think this might be a good video to watch. And I know you'll all be available to answer questions, and folks can always feel free to reach out to me over the page if they have a question that they think of after we wrap up here. But in closing, I would just like to say that DuPage County has always been, for quite some time, considered to be one of America's strongest counties. It's always been very safe. It's always had a very highly respected court system and judiciary. And we've always had highly qualified judges with high skill sets and of high integrity. And I know, our panelists all are certainly an embodiment of all of those traits. And I think we're all very, proud and grateful to have you guys on our bench. And again, thank you very much for joining us tonight and answering all these questions and answering the questions of the folks that were listening. We will be posting the full tape of tonight's event on our fan page tonight. We will also be having more safety page events coming up soon on a number of different topics. Those will be announced in the very near term. And I hope that we can all continue to work together. We have a very strong county, and we want to keep communicating with our elected officials and our community leaders to do what we can to keep DuPage County healthy and safe. Thank you, everyone, for listening tonight. Thank you again to our panel, and we'll wrap up now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks to our viewership.
Thank you.